A group of young people wake up in a mysterious glade surrounded by an ever-changing deadly maze. They have no memory of their past and must work together to solve the maze's puzzles and escape. But a series of events that challenge their understanding of the maze and the organization that put them there. Hi, welcome back to Movie Digest. In this video, I'm going to explain the 2014 sci-fi action movie, titled The Maze Runner. Spoilers ahead. The movie begins with Thomas waking up in an elevator and heading upward. With him are supply containers marked WCKD. As the elevator reaches the top, a door opens above him, and he finds himself surrounded by a group of boys. A boy named Glade approaches him and pulls him out. Thomas gets scared and takes off anxiously for a moment until he trips over and is horrified to learn he is in a glade surrounded by massive walls. They lock up Thomas for running, as it's against their rules. After a while, the group's leader Albie arrives and warns him not to run again. He asks Thomas if he remembers anything, but he gets anxious as he can't remember anything, not even his name. Albie calms him down, saying it happens to everyone and he will remember his name in a day or two. Albie shows him around and explains each of them has a different job, as they grow their own food and build their own shelter. The elevator provides whatever they need. It sends fresh supplies every month along with a new boy. Thomas then meets Newt, who will be in charge when Albie is not around. Thomas notices a door open in the giant wall. Albie then gives him the 3 rules of the Glade, where he must do his part, never harm another Glader, and never go beyond those walls. Thomas is introduced to Chuck, the kid who arrived a month earlier, and he is the youngest member of the group. However, Thomas gets more curious and walks towards the door of the giant wall. Chuck warns he is not supposed to go in there, just as Minnow and Ben come out of it. Chuck calls them the runners, and they run through the maze surrounding the glade and try to find a way out. As Thomas tries to run through the wall, Glade subdues him. Thomas fights back, and noticing this everyone runs toward him and tells him to stop, but Thomas isn't convinced until the door begins to close. That night, while everyone is partying, Newt warns Thomas how dangerous the maze is, as it opens every morning and closes every night, and it keeps changing every night, and the runners have been looking for a way out for 3 years. If the runners are trapped in the maze for the night, they get killed by the Grievers, a mysterious creature. Newt then takes him to the party, where Glade is wrestling with the other boys. Thomas bumps into him and ends up fighting Glade. Thomas takes down Glade, surprising everyone before Glade knocks him, and he hits his head to the ground, remembering his name, and everyone celebrates and welcomes him. Thomas has a dream that night. He finds many fleeting pictures, and a woman says, "Wicked is good." The following morning, Albie takes him to the wall and shows him a site where the boys cut their names on the wall upon their arrival, and they will cross it off when they die. Thomas asks Newt about the different possibilities they could escape, but Newt says they tried every one, but nothing worked, and the maze is their only way out. He then tells Thomas to get some fertilizer from the woods. When he gets there, he spots the runner, Ben, who suddenly attacks him as he is stung by a Griever. Ben accuses Thomas that it's all his fault, claiming he saw him. As he keeps attacking, Thomas escapes from him and runs toward the group. They soon realize he got stung, and Albie tells them to take Ben to the pit. He explains to Thomas that what happened to Ben is called the changing, where the sting causes the infection to spread and turn him dangerous, and there is no cure. That evening, they force Ben into the maze just as the doors close. Thomas had another dream that night. More of the lady reassuring him that wicked is good, but he also has a memory of himself and a girl his own age discussing diagnosis while seated across from each other. The following day, Albie joins Minnow and goes into the maze to retrace Ben's footsteps. Thomas wonders why Albie became a runner, and Newt mentions Albie knows more than anyone, since he is the first one to arrive in the glade, and he spent the whole month alone. It rains heavily during the day, and the runners haven't returned. All the boys arrive at the maze entrance and anxiously wait for them. Just as the doors begin to close, Minnow appears carrying the injured Albie. But Minnow cannot make it, so Thomas runs into the maze to help them, but the door closes behind him. Thomas learns Albie got stung by the Griever. Minnow says they should keep moving as the maze is already changing, but Thomas refuses to leave Albie, so they use vines to hide him from the Grievers. One of the Griever emerges and chases after Thomas. The Grievers resemble enormous robot leg insects with scorpion tails. Thomas manages to trap it in a vine before he runs into Minnow. He notices a section of the maze is closing and plans to lose the Griever, but Thomas lures the Griever towards him to crush it between those walls, killing it. The next morning, everyone is surprised to learn that they made it alive, and Minnow reveals that Thomas killed a Griever. That afternoon, they call in for a meeting. Everyone is excited that Thomas killed a Griever, and Minnow thinks they should make him a runner. However, Glade disagrees, as he feels Thomas broke the rules, and the grievers have been attacking during the day since Thomas arrived, and he feels Thomas brought more danger to them by killing the griever. As he continued, they heard the elevator coming up. They rushed out to check what the elevator brought, but were surprised to find a girl and no supplies. Newt finds a note which says, "She's the last one ever." The girl wakes up and recognizes Thomas before passing out. The group worries that the elevator hasn't gone back down, and they can't last long if they have no supplies. Thomas decides to get back into the maze to find something on the dead griever. Minnow decides to join him and brings 3 more boys with him. They find the remains of the griever and uncover a weird device that shows the number 7 on its display. They hand it to Newt, who finds the mark WCKD, the same letters they get in their supplies. They realize that whoever sends them supplies has made grievers. Glade says Thomas is manipulating him and wants him to be punished for running into the maze. Newt orders Thomas to be locked up for the night with no food, and makes him the runner, which makes Glade mad and storms out. Later, Minnow shows Thomas the map of the maze. He reveals he has gone through every cycle and every pattern and came to the conclusion that there is no way out. Albie refused to tell that to anyone since he wants everyone to believe there is a chance of getting out. Now Minnow believes there is a real chance they can find a way out. Minnow shows him the outer section of the maze, which changes every night with a regular pattern, and section 7 was open last night. Soon, they were informed that the girl was awake. Thomas rushes to the tower to find her throwing stones at the boys on the ground. Thomas screams up to her that's him. To which she allows him to come up. He explains that her memory was erased and assures her she will remember her name in a few days. She claims to be already aware of her name, Teresa. She then reveals that she also had the same dream. A woman always says, "Wicked is good." Teresa then shows him the 2 needles she found in her pocket. Thomas uses one of the needles on the still changing Albie. It ends up making him better. Thomas had to deal with the punishment of being locked up that night, and Chuck showed up and brought him some food. He then gives Thomas a little carved statue he made and asks him to give it to his parents even though he doesn't remember them, but he is sure they remember him and miss him. Thomas returns the statue and tells Chuck that he can give it to his parents himself. The following morning, they run into the maze and get to the outer section, but Minnow finds it strange to see section 7, as it is not supposed to be open for another week. Suddenly, the device they got from the griever activates. It makes the clicking noises and directs them to a new location, which Minnow has never seen before. When they arrive at a large area with the WCKD loading dock sign leading to a dead end, the device changes from red to green and creates a new path. That route leads to what seems to be a sewage tunnel. They find a slime-like substance in the tunnel which the grievers produce. Suddenly, they get scanned by a device and raise an alarm. They quickly escape before getting trapped and running away as the maze changes, finally reaching the Glade. They learn that Albie woke up, and he remembers everything. He tells Thomas that they can't leave as he is their favorite, but soon, they were interrupted by the noise outside. They learn that maze doors are not closing, and soon, every maze door starts to open, releasing a bunch of grievers to attack the Gladers. They take out the Gladers one by one and destroy their village. The group runs into the shelter, but it attacks them and grabs Chuck. But Thomas holds onto him while Albie whacks its tail with a hammer until it loses Chuck and drops the sting. However, the griever attacks again and takes away Albie. The group walks out and realizes only a few of them are left. Glade accuses Thomas of the griever's attack and says he is one of them. Thomas understands that the griever stings poison and enhances the victim's memory. He stings himself using the tail that was cut off. He can recall a little bit more now. He finds the other boys are being tested in incubation tubes. Many of them are terrified. He then sees himself with Teresa, and they both are scientists. The Gladers use the second needle to cure Thomas, and he admits to everyone that he's one of them and worked with the people who put them in the Glade. He says they are testing them, and only a few survive. However, Newt supports Thomas. The creators have erased their past, the only thing that matters is what they do now. Thomas agrees and says they must get through Glade first. Glade brings Thomas and Teresa out and plans to tie them up in the maze entrance as an offering to the grievers. But Thomas fights back, and Newt, Minnow, and a few other boys join him. Now the group is divided. Thomas tells Glade that he would rather die while trying to escape than die not trying. Thomas leads the group to the maze. When they reach the loading dock, they are attacked by the grievers. While the group fights them, Teresa and Chuck get through the sewer tunnel and arrive at the locked door, which requires a code. Thomas realizes the code is a sequence of the maze that would normally open. She types the code, everyone gets to the door, and the wall crushes all the grievers. Soon the tunnel is closed, and another door is opened behind them. They get to a hallway and walk through it until they find a door marked exit. They pass through the door to find themselves in a lab, which appeared in Thomas' dreams. All the scientists are dead, and the video starts to play. The same woman who appeared in Thomas's dreams identifies herself as Ava Page and reveals a global disaster caused by something called the flare, which created an incurable virus. She was a member of the World Catastrophe Killzone Department, WCKD, a divisive organization that thought by testing the children and monitoring their brains to find a cure. As she speaks, the guerrilla forces storm in and shoot the other scientists. She congratulates them on passing the initial test and reassures them that Wicked is good before she shoots herself in the head. A door that leads to the outside world opens. But Gally arrives before anyone can leave. He is armed. He claims they all belong to the Glade. Thomas is about to be shot when Chuck jumps in to take the bullet while Minnow stabs him in the chest. Chuck then gives Thomas the statue and dies. Soon they were surrounded by the guerrilla forces, who took them outside to get them into the helicopter and fly over the maze. At first they thought it was desert, until they learned that it's used to be a city, but the buildings were destroyed due to the catastrophe. We then see Paige alive and wiping her fake blood. She believes the boys have taken the bait, and more kids survived than anticipated. She calls the maze trail successful and believes it's time for phase 2. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this.